right. So the first question that we're addressing on this week's episode is a very complex and layered question. It's a question that when I first received in my inbox, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to address it. The question was submitted by someone anonymous, and I really just want you to know, Anonymous, if you're listening, that I appreciate your vulnerability in asking this question because I think many of us are thinking about this very topic, and not many of us know where to go with it, especially people in the spiritual realm. You know, when spirituality and politics really come together, it can be a very interesting perspective. So let me get into the question and then I'll start kind of downloading some of my thoughts. Anonymous submitted, how do you make sense of everything happening in our world right now, especially politically? I know you've said you don't talk about politics, but it seems like it's the thing everyone is discussing right now. The reason I decided to even address this question is for the exact statement of it's the thing that everyone is discussing right now. And I've never taken a political stance on really a lot of things simply because I just don't know that having a business and politics are two things that really are always a safe bet, right? Like you start having a political stance on things and, you know, you quickly understand the vulnerability in that, the risk in that from a community. But things are kind of different these days. And I think that right now, everybody is kind of being called into a path of some kind that eventually it becomes intertwined with politics because politics today, I don't feel that it's this kind of like gray area that people can kind of coexist in and people can have their opinions about things and there won't really be some kind of like life altering risk because of it. I feel like today, if you even like wear an American flag, like today, I'm wearing a sweater that I bought with an American flag on it. And I literally questioned wearing it because I was afraid if people were going to start making me out to be somebody that I'm not. And it's just a sweater. It's not a political statement. And the truth is that where I lie on the political spectrum is very independent and moderate. And I like to be that way. I like to look at all the different perspectives and understand what I agree with and what I don't, and what I still need to educate myself on. And for me, that's really been the medicine of this time that I'm in, witnessing all of these things happening around me and happening around all of us. It's a very chaotic time. And I've really been allowing myself in the last few weeks to educate myself and to become more curious, even about the things that I thought I had a very strong stance in. I've been allowing myself to look at both sides of the perspective or both sides of the spectrum. I've been doing a lot of research on what the left and the right have to say about different topics or different challenges or different societal or economic issues that are going on right now. And you may feel this way, you may not feel this way, but it is tangible, the amount of hatred and violence that is going on in our world right now. This morning, I had a very sobering conversation with Tyler where I just had this moment of like, I have to address the question around politics on today's show because although I have many thoughts that we're going to get into about this question, the number one thing that I really wanted to come on here and say is that violence will never, ever, ever be the answer on both sides. I don't care what political party you stand in, violence and harming another human being will never be the answer. It is sickening to me how we treat each other's lives like they don't matter. It is sickening to me to turn on any news channel and see both sides just as guilty as the other of condemning one another. It is so sad to me that our world is so corrupt and our country has become so corrupt in so many ways that we haven't been able to sit down at a table and have a conversation with one another and find common ground and a way forward. This is not a stance on any side. This is something I have very much witnessed on both sides. We're moving away from humanity and we're moving into some kind of something bigger that I don't know that I can even explain to you. Because so many people I've seen on TikTok, which is my main social media platform, have been saying things like, oh, I'm Republican and I'm going to unfollow all my Democrat friends or vice versa. I've seen the same trends of hatred on both sides. And my heart hurts when I see that stuff because that's really not the answer. And that is how far from humanity and from God I think that we have all strayed away from. That's how far we've become from this sacredness of being human. And so for me, the most comforting thing that I can do in this time is limit my news watching, limit the amount of voices from media that I'm taking in. And I've been having a lot of really eye-opening conversations with friends. I've even been, this is kind of funny, but I've been going on ChatGPT and I've been asking ChatGPT from the Democrat perspective, what is the stance, the general stance on this? From the Republican perspective, what is the stance on this? Can you take me back to the root of the issue of this thing? Can you, like, I have been utilizing, and it's interesting too, like, if you're on ChatGPT, I highly recommend always tell ChatGPT, do not play confirmation bias. Always give me the devil's advocate perspective. I always do that. And I always learn so much because I think it's important that we become aware of the general sense of all sides of a perspective and not to get lost in it because it's very easy to get lost in this stuff. You know, you just kind of keep going down the rabbit hole. I think Matthew McConaughey said something like he tried to get into some of the root causes of some of the political issues going on right now. And he's like, I literally became depressed because you just keep going. You just keep going and going and going. So try your best not to get stuck in the like rabbit hole of everything because it's easy to lose our sense of self in those spiral moments. But I do really encourage you to understand everything from many different perspectives. It's really easy to become pigeonholed or siloed or live in an echo chamber of the people around us and the news media outlets that we follow and the people we follow on social media. It's really, really easy to get lost in that. And I found myself getting lost in it. And this inner voice inside of me was like, actually, maybe we should just take a pause, take a step back, and look at things from a 30,000 foot perspective. And that's been really healing for me. But aside from the educational aspect of what's going on in politics right now, I've been making an extra effort to be kind and because like on TikTok, I follow many different people from different political parties and different perspectives because I'm a lover of learning. I mean, truly, like I love to learn. I love to receive information. I love to like be fed by that. I'm very nourished by learning. When we take the time to understand things from a lot of different perspectives and we don't get lost in the rabbit hole of it, it gives us some time to really land where we want to land. And, you know, I love not being in a political box. I love not being in a box in general. That has been kind of my act of rebellion since healing like the good girl within me. It's kind of like, I don't really know where I stand because I'm still figuring it out. And if I'm still figuring it out, then don't put me in a box. Like, I don't want to be labeled this, that, or another. Like, I don't like that. I want to be given the freedom to have an opinion on many different things. But I think the beauty of that is that you can be in that space for as long as you want. Like, you don't owe anybody, your family, your friends, your partner, like, you don't owe anybody an explanation for where you stand politically, especially if you're still educating yourself. And there shouldn't be a time limit on educating yourself for anything, unless there's an exam at the end of it or, you know, you have to graduate or something. But like, the beauty of learning is that it is a lifelong journey. We are always going to be evolving and learning. And to put a cap or an arrival on your learning, I don't know. So instead of telling yourself that you have to arrive at an opinion or a political party or a stance on something right now just because you're feeling the environmental pressure of our world today, that's not the case. Take a step back, find your own sense of self again, find your own space, even if you kind of put yourself in a bit of a bubble, and just let yourself be in this place of in between. And if you're somebody who has a very strong political stance on things, I would say, and this is a big statement, but I'm going to say it because it's how I feel, you have a responsibility with your confidence and your stance to still hear out and accept people who are different from you. Because when you start dividing yourself from others and separating yourself from others who are different from you, you're missing the whole point. I mentioned this a little bit earlier when I was addressing this question, and it's something that I was touching a little bit on social media, and I wanted to kind of expand a little bit more because I feel like right now, the polarization of these political parties is very interesting to me. I think it comes back to a lot of us needing to belong to a group of people that have the same values in us, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good feeling. But you've got belonging and fitting in mixed up. So there's like number one. Number two, there's something much larger at play here. And this is a more spiritual perspective, but it's been something that I've heard consistently that I totally agree with. If you think this is Democrat versus Republican, you're absolutely wrong. There is something at the root of all of this that is much bigger and much more evil than we can understand. And that energy, if it's a person or a group of people or just simply an energy, thrives off of separation and chaos and drama. And so the more we feed that, the more of the illusion you lean into, the more that you feed into that, the more you contribute to the bigger spiritual picture. And people aren't going to like that I say that. And I'm totally okay with that because that's my perspective. Now, from a psychological perspective, I understand what's going on. There's so much chaos and turmoil that's going on right now and so many big shifts that are happening. Naturally, as human beings, in chaos, we want to find order. You can argue that something like OCD, if you go through childhood trauma or war trauma from the ancestral perspective, is a means for the brain to find order in the chaos. As human beings, we're not meant to witness the things that we've witnessed in the last couple of months, the last few years, and even in other aspects and points of our lives. And so the brain is thriving and living off of this chaos, and it's feeding this bigger issue. But I think what's important to remember about the chaos from the spiritual and the psychological perspective is that chaos always comes before big shifts. Carl Jung has this philosophy that when you use polarization to divide people, eventually after enough time, a third subset of group will form as a result of the two in opposition with each other. It's a natural way for human beings to evolve. And so what's happening right now from the Jungian perspective is that you've got the Democrats and Republicans fighting each other. And eventually there's going to be another group of people that just go, this isn't working for anyone. Something needs to happen that's different. We don't know who those people are yet. We don't know when that's going to happen, but this apex point is happening. So collective systems are being re-examined. And it's unsettling. It's so unsettling for us. But I think for those of us, no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, if you even believe that God is real, or there's an energy out there that is much bigger than us, that is powerful and all loving and all giving, if you believe in any semblance of the sacredness of humanity, if you believe in energy and alchemization and growth and evolution, then I implore you to remember that your neighbor is not your enemy. We are all going through a major transformation. And the alchemy of this time to create order in the chaos is to scale back the hate and move into acceptance, understanding, and compassion, letting everybody be on their journey as they are. And that's why I spend so much time answering this question about educating yourself. Because if you take 8 billion people, you're going to have 8 billion people who are on very different spectrums of their evolutionary journey from the soul perspective, but also from the human one. From those 8 billion people, you can segregate them into different groups of evolution, and you can keep going down and down into communities and to space. I mean, you could do that. You could totally do that. And from that perspective, you would see that everyone gets to be on their own journey. Everybody gets to be on their own journey of their understanding. And the more that we shame people, the less we then give collective permission for people to evolve and transform, because that shame blocks them from feeling empowered to educate themselves, to have dialogue with different people with different perspectives. And the more that we silo each other, the more that we segregate each other, the more we miss the point. Because I truly think that what really is going to heal this at the end of the day is some generation saying, this is what's going on, and this is what's going on, and here's how we're going to figure out a way to work together. But we're not. We're all resorting to violence of the tongue, using tools, things that are accessible in today's world that you can go to Dick's Sporting Good and buy to silence people. It's sick. It's such an illusion. I was having these thoughts to myself the other day driving on the way to Target. I do my best thinking on the way to Target. And I asked Spirit, can you just help me understand, are we doing okay as a society? Are we doing okay? What's going on? The response was very simple. It was an overwhelming, the transformation is occurring, that everybody is being awakened. People are coming online to new aha moments about their own way to navigate what's going on right now. It's like everybody was asleep before, and now this is all waking people up, but it's traumatizing and it's heavy and it's anxiety riddening. And so as people are waking up in this very shocked way, some people are reacting more than they're responding, but eventually everyone is waking up. And I just thought that was a really interesting perspective from Spirit, because it very much feels like that right now. And we saw a little bit of that during the pandemic in 2020. A lot of people started waking up, but I believe that was just someone lighting a match on the fireworks, like it lit the match, and now like the rope is just burning and burning and burning. And, I hope we never get to the firework exploding, but sure seems like we're on the way. So I felt it was my personal responsibility today to address this question from a place of my own perspective. Wherever you are, violence is not the answer. Educate yourself, let yourself be in a place of in between as you start to figure out how you feel about things and where on the spectrum you may stand. Limit your news consumption. Mix up your sources so you're not stuck in one echo chamber. Pay attention to your body cues. If you feel anxious or heavy after anything, it's a sign to pause. The reality is that we cannot fix the whole world, but we can focus on our own corner of it. So more than anything, all of this, there's a lot of reminders in this, but I think all of this is really just a reminder of what grounds you back in yourself. Because a lot of these things take us outside of ourselves. So what grounds you in yourself? What are your values that guide your choices? And what small actions are in your control? Because even when politics feel divisive, most people ultimately want the same things. We all feel that we're looking for safety, for health, for stability, and for belonging. And remembering that and looking at the humanity of each person with acceptance of where they are at on their journey rather than where we think they should be, it softens the edges of us versus them, which Spirit has told me many times, the real epidemic of our world today, us versus them. Remember that your neighbor, the person next to you, the person that you may potentially disagree with, they're not your enemy. They're just somebody figuring out their journey. And you don't have to use righteousness in order to justify treating them poorly. So, Anonymous, I'll finish with this. You don't have to make sense of everything happening right now. You can start small. You can educate yourself. You can care for your mental health. You can engage where it feels meaningful. You can return to yourself and even a safe community. And when you do that, you cultivate the energy of the collective field, which is hopefully what we're working towards, a field of calm, compassion, and possibility. Do not forget that the collective is made up of individual people, and your individual contribution comes from your connection within yourself. So don't forget to tend to yourself. So that's a really big question, right? It's a really big question to start off the show with, but I felt a personal responsibility to address it. The real thing about that question is that I could keep talking about that for days. Like, the interesting thing about the show is that, like, especially when people just submit a question and I'm not working live, like one-on-one with them, when they can, you have the ability to call in, it kind of limits my capacity for how much I can go into certain avenues of things. So, take that for what it is. Take it as a grain of salt in the perspectives that I have around what's going on right now. And I won't open up about specific political beliefs only because I'm in this place of curiosity still. And I'm really enjoying that right now. I'm really enjoying being in this place of curiosity and educating myself and giving myself time to arrive to a conclusion about something and yet still create a sense of openness because I know that things are ever evolving and changing. So I know there's so much complexity to that question as well, but hopefully it can be well received and hopefully we can do our part